Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yesterday so in the previous class, you people understood how to write your own Python script in order to open the Google Maps and also locate some place on the Google Map. Okay, and this is what the difference, and the script what we wrote, it is reducing most of the tedious job which we used to do in order to locate some place on the Google Map. So manually we used to get the map, and we used to highlight the address, we used to copy the address, open the browser, and then these are the things which we used to do manually. So now by writing the Python script, all these things can be easily done. Okay, and all these steps you have avoided. So excuse me for a while.
ಸರ್ ನನಗೆ ಆ ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ 4 ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬುಕ್ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ ಕಾಪಿ ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು ಸರ್.
ಓಕೆ, ಇವಾಗ ಬೇಕಾ?
ಒಂಚೂರು ಒಂದೆರಡು ಲೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ ನೀವೇನಾದರೂ?
ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಲ್ಲ. ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ. ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್, ನಮ್ಮ ಫೋನ್ ಬಂತು, ಬಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಲ್ಲಿದ್ದನಲ್ಲ ತೆಗೀಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಸಾರಿ, ನೀವು ಅವತ್ತು ಹೇಳ್ರಿ, ನಾನು ಮರ್ತೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ.
ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತು ನೀವು ಮರ್ತೋದ್ರೆ, ನಾನು ನೆನೆ ನೆನಪು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಿತ್ತು, ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಮರ್ತೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏನೋ ಬ್ಯುಸಿಯಾಗಿದ್ದೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇತ್ತಲ್ಲ. ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ 4 ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಯಿತಾ ಸರ್?
ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ 4 ಇಂಟರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ಹೆರಿಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಒಂದು ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ, 5th ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನಾನು.
ಇವತ್ತು ಶುರು
ವೆಬ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, 2 days ಆಯಿತು ವೆಬ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೇಪಿಂಗ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿ. ಅದೊಂದು ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಇನ್ಹೆರಿಟೆನ್ಸ್ದು, ಸೊ ಅದು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನನಗೆ.
ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬ್ ಆಯಿತು ಪ್ಲೀಸ್.
ನೆಟ್ ಸ್ಲೋ ಇದೆ, ನಾನು ಲೇಟಾಗೋಯ್ತು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ. ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಂದೆಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇದೆ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ, ವಿಜಯ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಸರ್ದು. ಪಾಪ ನಂಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅವರು, ನಾನು ವೈಫ್ನ ಯಲಂಕ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬಂದೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಲೇಟಾಗೋಯ್ತು. ಇದಲ್ಲ,
ಅದೇ ಕೊಡಿ ಸರ್, ಅದೇ ಬೇಡ, ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಏನು ಬೇಡ, ಹಾಕಿ ಸರ್ ಅಟ್ಯಾಚ್ಮೆಂಟ್.
ಕೆಲವು ಸಲ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಇದು ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡು ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ ಬೇಗ.
ಬಟ್ ಈ ಲ್ಯಾಬಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೆಟ್ ತುಂಬ ಸ್ಲೋ ಇದೆ ಸರ್.
ಏನಪ್ಪ,
ನಾವು ಇದು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಈ ಲ್ಯಾಬ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಶೇರ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಇರಲಿ ಇರಲಿ, ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾನು ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡೋಷ್ಟು ಲೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಓ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದು ನೀವು?
ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬುಕ್ಕು.
ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ರದಲ್ಲ. Idu actually first one.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the
Okay, ತೊಂದರೆ. Okay. Sorry. So now, so next thing is how to download the files from the web with the request module. Okay, and we understood this part even earlier by using the URL library, correct? No, URL lib. How to download the file, because we downloaded one file and we also downloaded the binary file, an image file also. Similarly, now we'll see how to download the file from the web with the request module. So and this request module has advantage than compared to the URL library, because this allows you to easily download the files from the web without having to worry about the complicated issues such as the network errors, connection problem, and data compression. So it is much easier to use the request module than compared to the URL library, which we understood in the previous class. And again, this request module, if it is not there with the Python, or if it does not come along with the Python, you can always go for installing this by running the command line, correct? No, just go to the command line and just say pip install request. And even yesterday in the previous class, I demonstrated the program that is mapit.py program. So only for the command line arguments, and I could not do it for the clipboard. Why? Because the module was not there. That is py per clip module was not there, and even I have not installed it yet. So it can be easily installed just by saying pip install and then the request. So so the request module was written because this Python's URL lib2 module is too complicated to use, and earlier I showed you how to use this in order to download the files from the web. So but now you can do the downloading operation in Python by using the request module, and so most of the complicated issues are avoided here. Okay, and now henceforth what you can do is you can go for forgetting that I have ever mentioned as URL lib2. So if you need to download the things from the web, just use the request module. So just after you install the module by using pip install request, so you can go for importing it by using import requests. Okay, so downloading the web page with, yes, please mute. So downloading the web page with request.get function. Okay, so request is the module, and then get is the function which we invoke in order to download the web page. So the function takes the string of the URL to download. So by calling type on this request function, say I call this get method and I am passing the URL of the web page which I want to download. So and the return value from this get function can be passed as an argument to type. Okay, and you can see that the response is, so the return value is the response object, okay, which contains the response that the web page server gave for your request. Okay, so always once you pass some URL as argument to get function, you can go for checking the type of it by passing it as an argument. The return value of the get function can be passed as an argument to type, and when you pass it as an argument to type, what is that you'll observe is it is a response object, the response that is sent back to you by the server. Now how to do that? See, here is the example now. So we have imported the request module, and here I'm passing this URL as argument to the get function, and the return value from the get function I'm assigning it to res. Now this res I've passed it as an argument to type, and you know the type function which is going to define the type of the argument which you pass to it. Okay. Now since the argument which is passed to this is the response object, and it is holding the response that is returned by this from this URL, correct? The server returned response what res is holding now. When I say type res, you can see it is the response object. So it is the class request.models dot, it is a response, and I can also verify whether the response what I have received is the correct response. Okay. So we have something called as status code, which can be invoked on res object. The response, the entire response is stored in res object now. So on this res object there is an attribute with the name status code. Okay. So you can always verify whether the response what you have received is valid or not by invoking this. res.statuscode is equal to request.codes.ok. Okay. If this is true, then 200 is the success code. I hope you know the HTTP status codes. So and if everything is received successfully, you know what you get is true as the response. Now I just wanted to find what is the length of the response that is received. So what I'm doing now, I'm passing res.text. You can go for accessing the text part or the actual text part of this using the text attribute res.text. So we'll give you the length. Since res.text is passed as argument to length, so this is what the length of the file. So many bytes are received. Next, I just want to print the content of it. So print res.text, and from the beginning, so I don't want to print all this how many, nearly 1,78,981 bytes. So I don't want to print all of them. I just want to print the first 250 bytes from the file. So first 250 bytes from the file. So I'm giving it from the beginning 250 bytes. So what you are seeing here is the 250 bytes of data which are obtained from this particular PG 1112.txt file. Okay. So this is the program. Okay, yeah, you understood now how to download the files using the request module and the get function. Okay. Now I think the spider has started, so we'll go for executing this and see. I request others to mute. Okay, I'm importing the requests module. So it is imported, and then I don't have to install it because it is already there. Now I invoke the execution of get method by passing the URL. So let us pass the same URL, and then let me execute this first. See, it is done now. So it has sent the request for this particular host and asking for this particular resource, and it has responded, and the entire response what the server has sent back is assigned to res. Now I just want to check what type of what is the type of this res. Okay, what is the type of this res object? I just do type res. So you can see it is a response object which is written by the server. Next, what we do, so I just want to check whether the status code is okay. So successful. So request dot status code is equal to request dot status code. Okay. So now it is returning me true. Now you will try to print res dot status status underscore code. See, the status code what I am getting is 200. So 200 is what? The success status code. And similarly, if you are getting the status code as 500, what does it mean? Internal server error. So if you are getting the status code as 404, the requested resource is not found. Say I can show you that also. So let me make a call to get function by passing the resource which doesn't exist. So let me remove this pg1112.txt and let me give something. This does not exist. This does not exist dot txt. So I hope this there is no file with the name this does not exist which is present inside this particular host. Now when I do this, say again, so the response, I don't know whether this response is a successful response or an unsuccessful response. Now again I go for printing. So print what is it, res dot status underscore code. Now since this resource, this does not exist dot txt is not there in the host, correct? No, I assume it's not there, okay, because let me press this. Now I have to get the status code as 404. See, the status code which is returned as what? 404. In case when I send the request, if some internal server error happens, then the status code that will be returned as 500, and like this there are many more HTTP status codes, okay, and you can always examine whether the response what you have received is successful response or an unsuccessful response just by making use of this particular attribute res dot status code. OP people are following?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and then I'm interested in finding the length, so the total length. So when I say res.text, it is going to give you the actual length of the string body, this excluding all the header part. So even the response object will be including the header part also. Now when I say res.text, it gives you the size of the file excluding, or the size of the response excluding the header part. Now I am just interested in finding, okay, now I think I got to rerun this, because now this is the 404 status code, it is not a success status code. Now before this, let me, because res is updated now, I'll just go back to this. So okay, now I say length of res dot text. See, this is the length. So many bytes, total number of bytes. Next, so I want to extract, so the first 250 bytes out of it I want to display. So print res dot text of 250. See, what you are seeing is this first 250. Okay. So if I just write without giving this slicing or indexing, so what you'll see is the complete thing. So the full content of that particular web page, which is around 1,78,900 and something, so many bytes of data. See, so it is there on your Python console. It's too much. I think I have to scroll a lot. So you got everything in a click on your screen. See, from here it is. It's starting from here. I think some note on the William Shakespeare. Okay, now we'll just go here. Let me clear all these things. Okay. So now checking for errors. Okay. Say here I've given. See, the response object as the status code attribute. This is what I showed you in the previous class. By examining this status code attribute, you can check whether the response what you have received is a successful response or an unsuccessful response. Okay, you can always check that. So against this request.codes.ok. So if the response that is written by the get function, okay, you can access it by using this status code attribute, and this status code attribute you just compare with request.codes.ok. If it matches, then whatever the response you got is the correct response, and you can go for reading out of it. So a simpler way to check for the success is to call there is a function with the name raise for status. Okay, so you can also go for using this. Okay, method on the response object. On the response object, you just go for invoking this method raise for status. So this will raise an exception if there was an error downloading the file, and will do nothing if the download succeeded. Okay, so now you don't have to go for manually checking the status code attribute to equal this request.codes.ok. So what you can just do is you can just go for invoking the execution of raise for status method on the response object itself. So if the response is successfully downloaded, then nothing will happen. Otherwise, it's going to raise an exception, and you can easily handle that by using the try and catch block. Okay, so try and accept, not catch here. Try and accept. So this is the example which is taken for that purpose. So again, I'm trying to open the page does not exist, and on the response object simply I'm invoking the execution of raise for status. Okay, now when I say raise for status, if the page is not downloaded successfully, so then see this is what the error I'm getting. Okay, so this is what the error I'm getting. So the 404 client error not found. Okay, and the same thing can be written inside the try and accept, and you can go for more meaningfully handling these types of errors. Okay, now we'll just go for executing this. See, it has not told me anything. Only thing, response is written to the response object, and I still don't know so what has happened, whether it is a successful or an unsuccessful thing. Now instead of using the status code attribute, I just go for directly using directly using the method raise for status, and this method you got to invoke on the response object. I'm invoking this on the response object. One second, sir. So excuse me, students, for a while. Sir,
ಸಾರಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ ಬಿಡಿ.
ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇತ್ತು
ಅದನ್ನ ಮುಗಿಸಿ ನೀವು ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ಬರಲಿ
ಸರ್?
ಫ್ರೀ ಆಗೋದು ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ?
ಈಗ 10 ಮುಗಿಯುತ್ತೆ. ನಾನು ಅವಾಗೆ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ.
ಹೌದು, ನಾನು ಡ್ರೈವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ, ವಿಪರೀತ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್.
ನೀವು ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಾನು ಡ್ರೈವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಬಂದು
ಸರ್ 10ಗೆ ಬರಲಾ? ಫ್ರೀ ಆಗ್ತೀರಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ?
ಹಾಂ ಸರ್. ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಸರ್?
ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ನನ್ನ ಪಾಸ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್.
ಅದೇನಿಲ್ಲ, ನಿಮ್ದು ಅಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಐಡಿ ನನಗೆ ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಹೊಸ ಪಾಸ್ವರ್ಡ್.
ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ಶ್ರೀರಂಗ @BIT-Bengaluru.edu.
ನಿಮಿಷ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಸುಮಾರು ಇದೆ, ಹುಡುಕಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ.
ಶ್ರೀರಂಗ @BIT
ಅದು ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
ಶ್ರೀರಂಗ 62. ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸಾರಿ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಶ್ರೀರಂಗ 62 ಅಡ್ಡ
ಅದು ಬರ್ತದೆ.
ಅದೇ ಸರ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
ನಾನು ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಸರ್ ನಿಮಗೆ.
That is one issue.
Ah.
Yesterday I was taking IGNO class,
ಹಾಂ
9 to 11.
ಓಕೆ.
At 10:50, Professor Nagaraj, our former secretary, came to my house. ನಮ್ಮ ಫಾದರ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹುಷಾರಿಲ್ಲ, ನೋಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಪಾಪ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ರು.
ಓಕೆ.
ನಾನು ಎದ್ದೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡೆ. ನಾನು
Okay. So this I've invoked the execution of race for status on the response object, and you can see this is what the HTTP error it is displaying me. So 404, so client error not found for the URL, and it's saying this resource is not found inside the server where I'm sending the request. Okay. Now I can go for more meaningfully writing these things inside the try and except. So race for status method is a good way to ensure that the program halts if a bad download occurs. Okay. So this is a good thing. You want your program to stop as soon as some unexpected error happens. Okay. So instead of making your program run for a longer period of time and then making sure that something is not found in the server, so this is going to stop the execution of the program as soon as some unexpected error has happened. Okay. So compared to using this method, that is the status code attribute for knowing whether the response what you have received is a successful one or unsuccessful one. So this is the good approach, using or invoking the execution of race for status method on the response object is always a good method, because this is going to happen soon. Some unexpected error has happened, and it will terminate the execution of your program, and or it will let you know, so this is what has happened. So import request, and this is I'm doing again. You can see here now I have written it inside the try. So try res.race for status, and then this is what I am doing. Except exception as exe. So there was a problem, and this exe will print you the meaningful message or the error. So you can see here. So this was my message. There was a problem. This is what I have written here inside the print, and to that I am appending the error message that is generated by the system, that is 404 client error, or the error message which was sent by the hypertext transfer protocol, 404 client error not found, or the requested resources not found. So we'll go for executing this. See now, so that there was a problem. So 404 client error not found for the URL. It's also showing this is not existing. Okay. Now I have here. So let me go to this. Yeah. So till now you understood how to download the response object, and the response object is not completely downloaded into the hard disk. It's still there in the main memory. Okay. So because it gets stored inside the request object, on the request object we were going for displaying the content of the web page or any web resource. So but how do we directly download it to the hard disk and permanently store? Okay, so we have never downloaded it permanently to the hard disk. So if you just look into this, have we downloaded it permanently to the hard disk? No, it was there in the main memory. So it was there in the response object res, and where is this response object res stored? It is still stored in the main memory. Okay, hope you people understood. We have not permanently downloaded it to the hard disk. Next thing what we are going to understand is how do we download this permanently to the hard disk. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now how to download? So again, you got to make use of write binary mode. So write binary mode, even in the previous class also I told you, because we downloaded one JPG file to the hard disk from the remote system, and even then we used the open function, open method in the mode WB, which is nothing but the write binary mode. So same thing has to be used here also in order to permanently download the file to the hard disk. Now here is the example. So import request. Now this is what I'm trying to download permanently to my hard disk now, and I'm also trying to invoke the execution of what request raise for the status. Only thing is I have not used the try and accept. So, okay, you can go for using the try and accept. Since I'm executing this at the interactive IPython console, I'm executing them as the statements one by one. Okay, first I go for executing this statement, and next I go for executing this statement, and next I go for executing this. When I perform the execution of the statement, if I get an error, so I understand that this particular resource is not existing. So when you are making it as a script or as a program to execute, then it is always a good idea to write this inside the try and accept block. Okay, so and then if I'll assume that this is successful. Next I go for opening the file. So I want to save this file under this file name right now, Romeo and Juliet.txt, and the mode is WB. So this is a text file. Why we want to make it as WB, our write binary? Can't we make it as only? Can't we open it as in only the write mode? So it is not possible. So if you want to open it in the write mode, then you have to convert it into the ASCII representation. So but now it will be in the Unicode representation, because all transferings are happening via the network. It will be in the Unicode representation. For you to write save the file which you are receiving in the form of a Unicode representation to the hard disk, so you got to make use of write binary. So you cannot open it in the write mode. You got to open it in the write binary mode itself. So if you want to use in the write mode, so then it is necessary for you to convert from the Unicode representation to the ASCII representation, and then go for using the write mode. Okay, so that is a tedious job. Instead of doing that, you can go for using the write binary. Okay, so open, I get the handle to what play file. So next for chunk in res, so there is one more method with the name iter content. Okay, now instead of and in the previous class we understood, if the file size is very large and if you don't have the sufficient memory, so then what will happen? So the program will hang and it's going to cause a severe damage to your computer system. Just to prevent that, instead of downloading the entire thing at once, we go for downloading it block by block. So, and that can also be easily done. In the previous example when I showed you people, so we wrote our own looping construct. I'll just let me go back and show you. Yeah, this was the example. So we wrote our own looping construct. So while true, and then image read so many bytes you read it, so lesser than, and then write it into the file. So we were doing. Now this is not necessary. So on the res object, you can go for invoking the built-in function with the name iter underscore content, and you can pass the block size for it. So it's going to download this many block in one iteration. Okay, so instead of downloading everything at once, okay, so you can go for downloading it block by block by using res iter content, and go for writing that chunk of data to the file. So which file we are writing? Romeo and Juliet.txt, using this handler play file dot write. Okay, so and finally you go for closing. So and you can see here how many, so in the first iteration how many bytes of data it has written, so this many, and in the second iteration how many bytes of data it has written, 78,981, and you know the total size of this file. So pg1112.txt, so we executed it earlier. So the total size of the file was, okay, I have cleared it. Now if I do that again, let me copy. This one. I just say length of RDS dot text. So it is 1,78,380. And it is but it is here. Okay, no problem. Let me go for executing this code and show you. So the size of the file is little less here. So 1,79,380, and it was here more here. So in this case it is little more. Okay. Now let me go to this, and we'll try to download it by using this approach. So I know it is successful. I just go for this, opening the file with the name Romeo and Juliet.txt. In the write binary mode. Now I run this for loop, and I want this to be under this. Okay. So so it is written. So how it is written? In 2 iterations it is writing. In the first iteration, how much it is writing? This many. In the second iteration, the remaining. So in our case, it is 79,300 and how much? So 79,380 bytes. In the first iteration, it will write 1 lakh bytes. In the second iteration, it's going to write the 79,380 bytes. OP people understood? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we can open this file and see. So it is under the name Romeo and Juliet.txt. See, it's created. So this is the file. Can you people see this file?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm opening it. So it gets opened here only. Yeah. So I have opened it here. This is the file. Instead of writing the file in one go or saving it into the hard disk in one go, we are doing it in block by block manner. So one at a time, in one iteration, we are going to write 1 lakh bytes of data to the file. So now, and that is also easy now. So you got to make use of iter content method, and this method again can be invoked on the response object. So but earlier we did it on our own. Okay. So when I showed you in the previous example or the previous classes, we did it on our own. We wrote our own code to do that. I don't know, it was here only. Yeah, this one. So this is what we wrote. That is the reason we say it's very complicated to use the URL lib in order to download, but using the request, it's very easy. So iter content. Okay. So the steps that you need to follow is this. So first you got to call request.get to download the file, then open the file under which you need to store the content in the WM mode, that is write binary mode, and then loop over the response object using the iter content method. So and then call the write method and go for writing a block of data to the file in every iteration, and finally you go for closing the file. So very simple. So these are the 3 or 5 simple steps which we follow in order to download something from the internet and permanently save it onto the hard disk using the request module. So let me stop here for today, and the tomorrow's class will continue from here. So this so 5th module is quite interesting module, and you'll understand a lot of things here. So please focus properly and understand, and don't miss the class.